yeah, I thought we would do something a bit different during this international break. And as you can see on your screen, we've got certain Mr. Doom Merchant. I mean, Thane SCFC is back. No, Thane's all right. He's a sound lad. Yeah, I thought I'd get Thane back to sort of we'll talk through the season so far. Maybe best performers so far this season in the Sunderland squad. And yeah, we'll talk about how we're either going to win the league at a canter, or we're going to get automatic promotion at a canter, or we will get in the playoffs and probably lose in them again. But either way, which is funny how perspective changes. But yeah, Thane, how are you? Let's just ignore the fact we spoke for about 5-10 minutes before starting recording. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for inviting us to do this video, and I really appreciate it, and looking forward to it.
No, well, good. I'm glad that you are, because if you weren't, we would have been buggered, wouldn't we? But as you remember when I said against Coventry, I think I've had a cold recently, and it's going, but it's still quite there. But we soldier on, nonetheless. But yeah, so this video we're just going to be just waffling and talking crap, basically, which is what we used to do when we did the Friday Night Live stuff, didn't we? So just like there's a trip down memory lane where we used to do it when we were getting beat off Cheltenham Town and drawn with AFC Wimbledon and whatever else it is. So what a joy.
The good days and the bad days.
Oh God. Well, actually, as you know, I told you before we started recording, I was going back through the SCFC Fan TV, and I was going back through the journey back from Bolton, the 6-0, which when you think about it, it's like, oh my God, that was embarrassing. Like, when we were just getting battered in League One, and then bless him, I love him, right? But we feel he was going, well, we can't be as bad as that again. And like even which he knew what he was doing for bites. But yeah, those were the great old days, the League One days. Oh God. Actually, I'll quickly ask you this. Here's a funny question before we start getting all serious and stuff. I was at a friend's house last night, and I was trying to be good in terms of not eating too many calories, but then we ended up getting to KFC, which wasn't very helpful. But KFC is all right, and I hadn't had it for yonks, probably for the last year. But we had a conversation with me, and I want to ask you this exact same question. Pete asked me this. Would you rather, out of the two options, A, spend the next 10 years in the Championship, or B, go up to the Premier League, have a couple of seasons there, but then drop back down to League One after that? Yeah, that was my reaction as well. It's an absolutely horrible question, isn't it?
I was hoping you were going to say a couple of seasons in the Prem and then back down to the Championship, but when you said League
basically
One,
yo-yoing between the Premier League and the Championship, basically.
Yeah, if you said that, I would have definitely said that. But no, I would say 10 seasons in the Championship and do not go back to League One.
I could never stomach League One ever again. Like I think I'm just too scarred by the fact that when we're getting the most banterific results ever of losing to, like, I don't know, Cambridge United, or losing to Burton Albion. Fun fact, we still haven't beaten Burton Albion at the Stadium of Light, which is embarrassing. So yeah, Burton Albion at home in the FA Cup, anyone?
Or Mansfield in the FA Cup. Didn't they knock us out like 2 seasons in a row?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, they did. Oh my God. Yeah, this is what I mean when you have a lot of other people going, oh, look how hard we've had it. League One for 4 years. The end.
Exactly.
There's just no debate, no comparisons, and there's people who've had it worse than us. But like, Jesus.
Yes, horrible deals.
But yeah, I'm trying to find out actually if Burton are still in the FA Cup. Let's have a look. Are they? No, they must have got knocked out. Oh, that's a shame. Oh well. Oh, Mansfield's still in it though.
I'll tell you something though, and I know you'll definitely agree with us on this. I would actually accept getting knocked out the FA Cup against Mansfield if we got promoted.
Well, here's another one then. I had a friend of mine who's a Newcastle fan. I know I need to get a new friend, but I'll ask this, and I think this one will be fine interesting. Beat Newcastle, but don't get promoted, or lose to them in the FA Cup again, but get promoted.
I honestly, I know some people might think this is a bit controversial and that, but I would actually take beating Newcastle and not getting promoted. I just can't stomach when we get beat against them. I just can't take losing against them. I just can't.
Here's one then. Would you take losing against them in the FA Cup, but say this time we actually give it a good go, but we get promoted and take 4 points off them in the Premier League?
Oh, definitely. I think that was the most disappointing thing last season, especially like under Michael Beale. It was just the lack of effort, like the majority of that game was just absolutely awful.
It was basically just damage limitation, wasn't it? It was basically but to be fair, that wasn't the thing that pissed me off the most. Sorry guys, if you don't like more bad language, but this is probably going to happen on there. We'll try to avoid the F and C words and stuff, but like, No, we probably will end up swearing quite a bit. It's Sunderland, so as everyone knows, it drives you to a bit of insanity. But Joe, actually, the result that day wasn't what annoyed me the most. It was all of the Black Cats bar nonsense and everything leading up to it. Like, that made it 10 times worse to stomach because of basically people at the club clearly didn't understand, or some people at the club clearly didn't understand how much that fixture meant to us. But
lack of communication as well in the build-up as well.
Yeah, basically, away the lads. Oh, I hate that shit. But anyway, right, let's move on from that before we talk ourselves into depression. So, as you guys know, we are now 15 games into the championship season. Sunderland are sitting top of the division, granted by goal difference, but we're still top. We are on 15 games played, 31 points. So I thought the first thing I suppose we'll discuss is the general question. How do you view the season so far? Now, because we're past the point of it's the start of the season for me. We're now we're a third of the way through, aren't we? We're not far off the festive period, so we're kind of in the thick of it now.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, obviously, I mean, what's that? Like 2-3 international breaks and that in a row. Actually, haven't we been top after every international break?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, going into every international break, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose if you look at the big picture of that, it's been a fantastic start, really. Like, honestly, I mean, after last season, I'm not going to lie, I didn't really have much optimism. I was just going into this season, I was just basically hoping, try and get top 6 if you can, and not just anything, just better last season, please. But what we've done so far with that, especially I would say probably the first 10 games, especially in that, really good start. And yeah, top of the table. You can't really complain in terms of points and where you are right now.
The thing is, imagine if we say, "Oh yeah, guys, we're not going to have Reggie Labrise. We'll have Doddsball for a full year." But do you know what? I'll stick up. The one thing I will stick up for Mike Dodds. I believe that Beale appointment did a lot more damage behind the scenes than we probably even realised. Because if you notice, granted it was only 3 games, but when Dodds took over after Mowbray, you couldn't tell me those 3. Guess it's 3 games, but you couldn't tell me that we played anywhere near the level of despondency that we did after Beale got sacked. Because I think or Beale left, rather, I should say. I think the Beale appointment really sucked a lot out of the club, and I think Dodds I'm not saying Dodds was good, by the way, because he obviously wasn't. But But I do feel for Dodds, and I did believe him that taking over from Beale was a lot harder than Mowbray, and I think it's one where it just looked like the energy had just gone from the season completely. And I think at that point it was like, right, the season's a write-off now. Let's just make sure we don't get relegated. Oh my God. Yeah, it really wasn't good enough. But I've always maintained this, and I want to know what you think. I've always maintained the belief throughout the whole summer that some people just looked at our league position last year and assumed that's where our squad should have finished this year or should be competing this year. And I've said, with all due respect, that's a load of horse shit, because there is quality within our team. And I would argue that, granted, okay, when we sold Jack Clark, I didn't expect us to do as well as we did with Romain Mundell in particular. And it says a lot that we're gutted he's out injured, which is a testament to how well he's done, actually. But I've always felt that, granted, maybe not this well, how we've done, but I've always felt our squad should have been a top 6 level team, because I felt we've always had the depth to do, well, not depth so much, but the quality to actually do it. If you look at 09, even before the summer signings, 09, Ballard, Sirkin, when he's fit, Hume, Neil, Job, Rigg, Roberts, I suppose, technically, even though until he gets to the final third. But then, obviously you had Clark at that point. So there's still, the point is the team, even Patterson, I know a lot of people don't seem to like Patterson, but I'm still quite a big fan of his. At least for the championship, I should say. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, I guess the question I suppose to end all of that waffle is, are you surprised with the extent to well we've started? Because I'm not surprised we've started well, because I believe this should be the norm for the team that we've got. Not this extent, but being in the top 6. But even I was surprised at saying we're above 2 points per game for a third international break in a row, and we're obviously top at the moment with 31 points out of 15 games. Are you surprised how well we've started, or that we've started well? It depends on your stance.
It's like you can look at it 2 ways, because some people I sometimes forget how you should be doing, but also expectations at the same time, if that makes sense. Now, I always say, a club this size, the expectation should always be got to be in the Premier League. It has to be. It's a Premier League club. But
don't say that. Don't say that. Fans of League One clubs will think that's arrogant.
Oh yes, very true, very true indeed. But yeah, God's honest truth, and that like even before the season started and before we started like bringing the players in, I did think to myself, we should be aiming for at least top 6 minimum. But did I think on paper we were good enough for top 6? No, I do agree with what you said. Like, yeah, last season that squad shouldn't have finished as low as it did, but I still didn't think we were good enough to finish in the top 6, and that in terms of like the quality, like my own like personal opinion. But we should have been higher, like at least. I think we were a top 10 side last season.
Do you think it still should have been? Okay, I'll rephrase this. Do you think even if we weren't good enough for top 6, it still should have been challenging for it, even if we didn't finish there?
Oh yeah,
so say if we finished between
7th, for it, yeah.
Yeah, say was that squad last season, should that have finished in your opinion between 7th and 10th, for example?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what I was kind of like thinking like last season. I mean, even the start of this season, I was at the start of the season. I think I predicted us to like maybe finish 7th or 8th in that potentially.
Do you know what's funny? I'm probably one who's more glass half full, and in my predictions, if you predict us to finish 7th or 8th, you went for a higher spot than I did, which is weird. Yeah. I went for us to finish 9th, but I did stress that if you even if you sold Klopp, if you got someone good up front, or if you kept Klopp, one of the two.
Yeah,
that for me should change to top 6, because I've always believed that what we have is good enough. And I mean, you know, and lucky enough, we've signed Wilson Isidor, who's come in to make the Mackems dance. Basically, I don't know if you've seen the AI stuff that Graham Falk, the What the Falk lads put, which is a great podcast, by the way. I listen to them all the time. But like he put an AI about a song about Wilson Isidor, and it's also funny how Wilson Isidor, dare I say, we've actually signed someone who's good up front so far. And is an outlet, and we haven't had one of them since Ross Stewart.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I first heard about Wilson Isidor, I was a little bit like, oh, where's this come from? But I was actually excited about it at the time because I thought, I know it's the Russian league, but at the same time, he was playing at the time for 2 like big Russian clubs in Lokomotiv Moscow and then Zenit St. Petersburg. And he was 23 at the time. Obviously, since he's been here, he's turned 24. So I thought, good age, plenty of experience, and after like a young striker, and very, very physical, very pacey, and that's why I was okay with the sign at the time. But to be fair, he has actually exceeded expectations. I think he's done even better than what I was expecting. I thought he would have been like not a great striker signing, but I thought he was a sensible, okay signing. But so far, you would say he actually looks a cracking signing, to be fair.
Do you know and the other thing was, actually, to be fair, and I'll hold my hands up here. At the time, I thought we were signing someone who was a winger who could play up front.
Actually, I did say that myself, like a little bit. I did say that my only little concern was, like, are we actually going to put him out wide? Because like when he was playing in Russia, he used to play a lot out wide as well. So that was a little worry at the time as well.
But having said that, when I've watched him out wide, he's nowhere near as effective for me as he is in a central role. So in a way, for me, it kind of ends the debate about out wide up front. Like so RLB, if you're watching, and not that you would be, please don't put him out wide. Keep him up top where he's a threat. So
out striker.
Absolutely. Definitely. But I'll tell you what, though, to be fair, and again, me and my mates were joking about this, he doesn't seem to score simple goals, does he? Like, you know, if you look, I mean, his most simple one was probably against Derby when Mundo puts it, not on a plate for him, because he still has to make the run, but he makes the run in the 6-yard box. You know, the one against Watford was at the back post pretty much. Then you've got the one from Hull when, okay, granted, Hull helped us in the way that they set up, but he had to run half a way across the pitch, then do a step over after being caught up and dink the ball over the keeper. And then he only scored 2 average goals against Oxford and Coventry. You know, nothing particularly special in either of those games. No, honestly, the technique he showed for both of those goals is just absolutely insane. And I love the fact now, and I've said before, right? For example, Russian is an example. I'm someone who actually quite likes Russian. I think a lot of people, I don't think he's got as fair a crack of the whip for me, personally, to make a definitive judgment on whether he's not good enough. But even I've said this. Russian is not an outlet. Whether you like him or not, he isn't an outlet. He's not someone who you can get the ball up top and have it stick to, whereas Wilson Isidor finally actually is that. Now watch him get injured and be out for 7 months. But hang on. I'm touching every bit of wood in the vicinity. Please don't let that happen.
You know, personally, right, you know, with Russian, and that, I mean, I like Russian and that. I like his attitude. I think he's got a good attitude. And to be fair, if you watch like behind the scenes footage, now on match days and that he's actually getting better with his English and that, which is quite good. And he still has like a smile on his face sometimes, even though he's hardly getting any game time. And when he does play, I think he's got good work rate. But personally, for me, he's not a striker. I've always said he's looked better out wide. I think he could do a job out wide, personally.
Well, here's one then. Would you be against putting Ruskin out wide at Millwall?
I would.
I mean, and not in the grand scheme of things, by the way. I mean, just for this game with who we've got missing.
Yeah, like for the time being, instead of like moving Isidor out wide and stuff like that, yeah, I would actually rather put Ruskin on the left and keep Isidor up front.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to Millwall in a bit, but we'll talk more generally first. I think another thing to take away from the start of the season as well is that, okay, look, the last 3 games. Okay, I'll say QPR for me was still a good point because of the. I don't care where QPR in the league, by the way. When you go down to 10 men for 40 minutes of the game, pretty much, for me to get anything out of it, I view as more of a more positive than negative results. That one I'm standing by on. But the 2 games since, granted, I think you can be frustrated with them because Preston, I thought going forward we were really poor. Worst performance of the season going from an offensive perspective, and then obviously Coventry. Well, yeah, we go 2-0 up and then we end up throwing it away. And by the way, I think I've since made a rule up now. Every time we play Coventry, just write it off. We're never allowed to beat them every time. And I think every time Coventry turn again, every time, I don't know what it is, Coventry always turn to bloody Manchester City every time they play Sunderland. I know they wear the same home colour home kit, but like, Coventry, can you like sod off, please? If we go 2-0 up against you, can we for once just be able to beat you instead of just dropping points all the time?
When you think about it, though, Michael, Coventry are actually playing better than Man City at the minute. So,
well, right, true. I suppose there's something for you. Never thought you. There you go. There's the title. Coventry are playing better than Manchester City at the moment.
Yeah.
To be fair, right, if you look at the last couple of games, right, I think not beating Coventry was annoying. I agree with what you said in the comments of my video. That is, look, it's another point on the board, but it's not a good point really. Not when you're 2-0 up. If you'd have been 2-0 down and come back to get something, then that's obviously different. But when you're 2-0 up, and both Coventry goals, I mean, had you right to finish, good finish was a good finish, but like both goals were easily preventable, which was really irritating. But I will say this, man, I don't think Coventry's squad, I mean, Coventry is 17th at the minute. How the hell that squad is 17th, I have no idea, because that squad for me should be a top 6 side. When you look at the players Coventry have got, off the top of my head, Eccles, Sheaf, I know some fans don't like him, but Sims for me, Wright, Radoni, Sakamoto. Like when you list those, and obviously that's off the top of my head, but when you list players like that, I know Coventry start poorly, but there's really no excuse for it. For me, my point was, I always had it in my head, the Coventry game would be a draw, because I think they're a team that's underperforming their expectations. And I think Coventry, in typical Coventry fashion, unless they appoint Frank Lampard or something, I think they'll end up rising up the league soon enough. I do think they will start to prove that actually they're not a bad side. But yeah, I think my point is you can be frustrated at the Coventry result, and rightly so, and I'm still a bit frustrated by it, even though I think everyone's massively calmed down, I'd like to think, since then. Because obviously in the heat of the moment, you're obviously going to go through a load of emotions. But you can still, for me, you can balance being frustrated with that result, but still not lose sight of how well we've actually done. And I think, look, okay, hopefully we're not going to look back at the Coventry game as those 2 points drop making a massive difference, but it depends on games coming up. But here's what I'll ask you then. For the start of the season, overall package, what's pleased you the most?
Pleased the most? Still being unbeaten at home. That is like a real positive. That's good. Even though, I'm not going to lie, it is funny at the same time, right? Where before both the Leeds and Coventry game, I would have took a point. Like, I really would have. Like, before both games. But it's just, there was certain aspects of the Leeds game, more with Labrie leaving subs too late, not making enough, did frustrate us. And I thought we got out of jail with that, like, with that game we did, because of the Melier howler. And that where we should have lost.
The only counter I would make to that is Leeds' first goal was offside, and
that is true, to be fair.
Actually, to be fair, I mean the second one there was a foul in the build-up, but there was enough time for us to stop it, so I'm not going to indulge on that one too much. But I do like what you mean. Like it was a freak mistake that got us a point.
Freak mistake.
Sorry, go on. Yeah.
And then the Coventry. I mean, I'm never confident when we play Coventry because we haven't beat them since 2007 under Roy Keane, and that just tells you everything. But I would have. See that I said this to like to you in the comments as well. This is why it was so frustrating. Where had we beaten Preston, then I wouldn't have been as angry at the time with the Coventry game. Yeah, I still wouldn't have been happy for chucking it away, but then you would have said 4 points from 2 games isn't bad.
Yeah, you mean the point against Coventry would feel a bit better if you'd beaten Preston?
If you'd beaten Preston, yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the 2 home games, like them 2 home games, like, yeah, you're still unbeaten and that, but yeah, it's just a shame, yeah.
Coventry especially should have been a win, shouldn't it? That's the thing.
I mean, that's the thing. I'd say like a lot of people say first half brilliant and second half awful. What I would say, right, watching the game is first half, thought we were really good. I thought second half, I thought we were fine up until the first goal. Like I didn't think Coventry were doing anything. It was just Alan Brown, who I actually thought had a really good game until he picked up his injury, just hadn't like put a tackle in, but his tackle goes straight into the path of like Hadji Wright, which is just unfortunate. So
we're just every time we play Coventry, we're just cursed.
Yes, we certainly are.
Yeah, but yeah, I get what you mean. I think because I wasn't at the game, but obviously as everyone knows, I was staying with my family in Manchester for my cousin's birthdays, basically. But I was able to catch a lovely legal stream of the game. So I did. So everything past the first 10 minutes, I did watch. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. I think up until Hadji Wright scored, I felt like they were looking next to non-existent of doing anything. I thought, right, okay. I was still kind of in the back of my mind at halftime going, 2-0 up. You think you should be plain sailing, but it's Coventry. So like, actually, I don't know if you watch them, but the Second Tier podcast.
To be honest, I have actually watched a couple this season. Yeah.
Well, basically, they asked for 3-word reviews from fans of their team's performance. So, of course, I actually put a 3-word review that they got mentioned on the podcast, and I basically said 3-word review: hate playing Coventry.
Yeah, that's
yeah. So when we go to Coventry, as I said, I'm just going to write that game off because there's always a bloody sequence that happens when we play Coventry. We draw the first game, lose the second game. So if you look at in 18-19, drew 1-1, lost 5-4. Then the season where it got called off for COVID or for the pandemic, then you had drew 1-1 when Benji Kimpioka scored, lost 1-0 at St Andrews when Coventry had a ground share with Birmingham. First season in the Championship, drew 1-1 on the opening day, lost 2-1 at the CBS. And last season, drew 0-0 at the CBS, lost 3-0 in Michael Beale's first game at home. So, and we've drawn here. So who knows what's going to happen down at the CBS in March? Who knows?
What I will say though, like with the whole like Reggie LeBreece, like obviously getting manager of the month again, which obviously like congratulations to him by the way. Like if that was that's the thing though, if it is a curse, it's not as bad as like last time because last time it ended up getting beat off Plymouth, wasn't it? Yeah, so.
Yeah, I see. Oh, there you go, positive. At least we got a point this time.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. I was thinking if they were going to announce the manager of the month thing, I was like, guys, can you not just wait till after the Coventry game, then announce it? Then at least you've got a 2-week break before the next game, so it feels less of a curse. But never mind.
When you think about it though, at the same time, like from our point of view, yeah, I know we talk about this whole like manager of the month curse thing, but the more manager of the month awards that LeBreece gets means.
It means we're doing well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay then. Let's put it this way. Hopefully Reggie LeBreece is winning manager of the season in May.
When do you think about it? I know it's only 15 games, but obviously the table doesn't lie. I mean, to be fair, I think the only other manager, in my opinion, that's got a case to be manager of the season so far is Chris Wilder.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because to be fair, like Sheffield United did start the season on -2, so if it wasn't for the points deduction, they probably would have been top right now.
Well, they would have been. They would have been on 33 points if it weren't for the points deduction.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right, so I think the thing that's pleased me the most is that we've managed to, okay, yeah, look, 3 weeks ago, we were 5 points clear. But I think at the end of the day, people got to realise that every team in the Championship, every team in football, to be honest, unless you're like, I know Man City are going through a dip, but that's like an anomaly for them. Unless you're like Man City with the riches and the quality they've got, most teams go through a spell where you have a wobble and you go without a few games without a win. Every team has it. You want to look at even as last season. Now, I know at the time Leicester, for example, I know at the time they built up a pretty big points gap, but they still went on a run of something like one win in like 6 or 7 games. They went through a run of like losing few away games on the spin. Ipswich went on a run where they won like 1 game in 9 midway through the season. So I would say this: if this is our wobble, we're still putting draws on the board, which is a good thing. But obviously, you don't want this to go on for 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, whatever. So And I think if we're going to look forward, I think the next 3 games are very, very tricky. I'm not going to lie. They are very, but it would be so Sunderland to draw against QPR, Preston, and Coventry, and then take 7 points off Millwall, West Brom, and Sheffield United, because that's just how the championship works. So I think what's pleased me the most is the ability to have been able to look. Okay, Coventry we threw away a 2-goal lead, but that's been an anomaly really this season. We've generally been very good at seeing leads out in games. And I think the thing that pleases the most is probably a lot of the home performances. I think there's only second half against Coventry and aspects of the Leeds game where we've played a bit meh at home. Maybe Derby the Derby County game until we scored the first goal. But in general, we've controlled a lot of games at the Stadium of Light. Like if you go through each game at home, like Sheffield Wednesday, okay. I nearly called them Sheffield United there, and I hate it when teams do that. People do that. So apologies, Sheffield Wed fans, anyone watching. Sheffield Wed, I think the score did flatter us a bit, but we definitely deserved to win the game. I think we definitely were worthy winners. I think probably 2-3-0 would have been fair. Burnley, for me, I don't know what you think. I think Burnley's still been our best performance so far this season.
I would agree that, to be fair. And to be honest, that you actually said about like 4-0 maybe flattered us a little bit. I think 1-0 flattered Burnley.
No, you're right. I agree. I honestly reckon if we'd have won 2-3-0, they couldn't have complained. I think, and I don't want to hear this nonsense because some Burnley fans are going on about, oh, well, look at the team we had that day. Look at this, that, and the other. Right. I'm not being funny. That's a load of nonsense because you still had Vitinho at that point. You hadn't sold him. Brownhill still played. Rodriguez played. Foster played. Trafford played. Your back four, with the exception of Dara O'Shea, was the exact same back four that had scored that were part of a team that scored 9 goals against Luton and Cardiff the previous 2 games.
And just think as well that
and we've lost Jack Clark in the build-up. We've lost Jack Clark in the build-up to that, and we didn't have Dan Ballard at the time either. So come on,
that Burnley squad as well. I'm sure it costs like over £50 million, and also the centre back that had played that day, Maxime Esteve, the French centre back. I'm sure they spent £15 million on him. So
yeah, well, exactly. So I look, I get it. Obviously, if you're going to have a lot of disruptions, and we're going to have that at Millwall next week, obviously, but you've still got to play the game, haven't you? You're not just going to, you can't just write off the game because you've lost a few players. It's exactly like Millwall. We're not going to be able to write off the game. We've still got to go there and try and get something. So, So, but no, Burnley for me would deserve to win. We should have won by more. And I think for me, I left the field that day, regardless of the problems Burnley had. I was very proud of the lads that day. That was the moment where I started to take note and go, hang on a minute, we could actually do something here. Not necessarily top 2, but I did think, hang on. Maybe I was right. Maybe the team we've got actually is a damn good side, or at least a good side. Maybe you could argue about the depth, but certainly our main players, like start 11, is a very competent top half champion, I'll say top 6 championship side actually. But anyway, so Burnley, we dictated a lot of that game, and it was fitting that Mundell scored on the back of obviously Clark going because he hadn't been confirmed at Ipswich by the time the game started, but it had been all but done, hadn't it? Yeah. So. Then you had Middlesbrough, who everyone seems to love. We managed to beat them 1-0 and shut them out and completely. And again, apart from Tommy Conway hitting the bar, which to be fair, we should have scored. But that aside, Borough created nothing of note. Yeah, exactly. That's not an easy task to keep out a team for the firepower they've got. Then you had Derby. Okay, we started a bit shaky, but once we scored, after the first 20, 25 minutes, we got control of it and started to play our game, and the superior quality showed. Yeah. Leeds, for me, who I believe have still been the best team I've watched us come up against, in my own opinion, unless you have anyone else in mind. Certainly at home, anyway. Best team I've watched us come up against. I think we showed we can compete against them, albeit Melier decided to be a Sunderland fan towards the end because there was a meme actually on my phone. I put something like he's talking to Reggie LeBrus. He said, "I had both teams to score, or I had over 3.5 goals at 22-1 or something," which was quite funny. But yeah, we managed to get something off Leeds, which I did say I would have took a point, but obviously me being me, when we went in front and we're letting 2 goals, I was like, a little annoying actually. But a point against Leeds is a point against Leeds. Then obviously you had Oxford, probably the most one-sided game we've had so far this season, I think, where literally we were just the superior team throughout, and that was on the back of a very battling win away at Luton that I thought would have took a lot out of our legs, actually. And then obviously you had Coventry. Okay, Coventry's second half was crap, but when you look at it, I mean, I think we've played, hang on, let me see how many games we played so far. I think it's 7 games at the Stadium of Light. We've won 5, drew 2, which is at home, you cannot really. Okay, Coventry, yes, you can be frustrated, but you can't really complain too much at that for me. But I think I'll ask you this. Here's sort of a reverse question. What's the biggest room for improvement based on the first 15 games? Because yes, we're on 31 points. Yes, we're top, but it's not been perfect, has it? There has been areas we can be better, I should say.